right, made it to the top with Hassan and his crew. They're swapping out the lighting system up here. Wonderful day with them. America's tower crews get the toughest jobs done. Super grateful for their work.
Chairman Carr climbs an 1,800-foot tower. Meanwhile, on the ground, he questions iHeart about PAYOLA and Verizon about DEI. NAB calls for next-gen TV transition by 2030. Tesla looking at wireless EV charging. And 2 Miami Pirates, one a repeat offender, walk the plank. All that and more coming up.
REC, FCC Today, Michi Bradley.
Bringing the Daily Digest to life, this is FCC Today, the podcast for March 3, 2025. A new acronym you may see and hear much more going forward is RIF. And I'm not talking about those reading is fundamental public service announcements we remember as kids. I am referring to the federal government's reduction in workforce. OMB, the Office of Management and Budget, and OPM, the Office of Personnel Management, has sent a memorandum to heads of federal departments and agencies as a part of President Trump's Government Efficiency Workforce Optimization Initiative. According to the memo, agency heads shall promptly undertake preparations to initiate large-scale reductions in force consistent with applicable law. Agencies will have until March 13, 2025 to develop an agency RIF reorganization plan, or ARRP. ARRPs should achieve the following: better service for the American people, increased productivity, a significant reduction in the number of full-time positions by eliminating those that are not required, a reduced real property footprint, and a reduced budget top line. In this first phase, agency heads are asked to detail agency subcomponents that provide direct services to citizens, identify the statutes that establish the agency or subcomponents of the agency as statutorily required entities, identify employees performing work not mandated by statute or regulation, whether the agency or subcomponent can be eliminated or consolidated, and a list of all positions considered essential, among other things. In Phase 2 of the ARRP process, agencies will need to submit their proposed reorganization charts, plans to combine employees doing the same functions into more common locations, any proposed relocation of offices outside the Washington, D.C. area, and other plans to reduce costs and promote efficiencies through improved technology. In the recent past, congressional Republicans have challenged the need for the existence of some agencies such as the EPA, stating these agencies were never created through statute, or in other words, a law passed by Congress specifically establishing the agency. The FCC was specifically established by Congress in the Communications Act of 1934. While the Communications Act does not specify each bureau within the agency, 47 U.S.C. 155B does authorize the agency to establish bureaus, such as the Media Bureau. As of this recording, we are not aware of the extent to which a reduction in workforce will take place within the FCC. REC continues to stand in support of the career employees throughout the agency. In light of the recent White House pause on federal grants, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting has advised grantees of the Next Generation Warning System program to temporarily stop work on grant-related activities. Speaking to Axios, CPB Communications Director Tracy Briggs stated that while the corporation has not received any formal communication from FEMA regarding the grants, they stated that the agency is conducting some type of internal review, which does include the NGWS grants. In the interest of caution, the CPB has issued to grantees a temporary stop work order with respect to further commitments of funds pending such guidance. Briggs understood the difficulty of station situations, and the CPB is exploring all avenues to move forward expeditiously. The NGWS grant program, which was created by the Federal Emergency Management Agency and administered through the CPB, was designed to support investments that improve the resilience and security of public broadcasting networks and systems. Grants could be used to allow public radio stations to upgrade to digital to enable broadcast of enhanced emergency alerts, expand alerts to those with disabilities and limited English proficiency, improve alerts and warnings in rural areas, and to allow public television stations to upgrade to the next generation ATSC3 broadcast standard.
The future of television has arrived. Next Gen TV is here, and broadcast television will never be the same. The future of television has arrived.
The National Association of Broadcasters has filed a petition for rulemaking to set dates to complete the transition of digital television from the current ATSC 1 to the next generation ATSC 3 broadcast standard. First authorized in 2017, ATSC 3, marketed under the name Next Gen, uses different modulation techniques within the 6 megahertz TV channel that provides what NAB calls stunning improvements over the current DTV standard. The stunning improvements cited by NAB include better picture quality with higher frame rates and high dynamic range, interactive applications, and testing of a new broadcast positioning system, which NAB states could serve as a powerful backup to GPS, addressing critical vulnerabilities in national security and infrastructure. According to NAB, over 14 million ATSC3 receivers have been sold, and that ATSC3 broadcasts are now available in more than 80 markets, reaching over 75% of the population, all while operating within their existing spectrum and maintaining ATSC1 broadcasts. Under the NAB plan, stations in the top 55 markets, representing roughly 70% of the U.S. population, would fully transition to ATSC3 by February 2028. Waivers could be made available for smaller and non-commercial stations. Stations in remaining markets would transition by February 2030. This transition may be difficult for the average consumer due to the large penetration of receivers that only receive ATSC1 broadcasts. Unlike the transition from analog to ATSC1 digital television, this transition will not be part of a congressional mandate to recover spectrum or for other purposes. Therefore, unlike the analog to DTV transition, there is no federal appropriation to fund a coupon program to allow consumers to obtain converter boxes. In other words, consumers in major markets will have 3 years to purchase a new TV, or they will be completely cut off from over-the-air television. Some in the industry are concerned that certain unresolved issues, such as digital rights management, could add complications to the smooth transition, as some receivers may not be compatible with all free-to-air video programming that would be delivered. Opposing the mandate, Gary Shapiro of the trade group Consumer Technology Association states that NAB is at it again, comparing this effort to a past NAB initiative to mandate FM radio receivers in wireless phones, as well as their current support for the AM radio in Every Vehicle Act, which would mandate the installation of AM radios in cars as standard equipment. According to CTA, less than 10% of Americans rely on antennas for television viewing, and the proposed mandates only add unnecessary costs at a time when affordability is top of mind for American families. CTA further states that rather than innovating, broadcasters are lobbying for regulations to prop up their failing business model, and serves as a stark reminder of why they should not be allowed to consolidate and control markets. According to CTA, if the broadcasters' technology had real value, they would not need government mandates to sustain it. Ironically, 8 years ago, the CTA and the NAB jointly opposed an ATSC3 tuner mandate, stating at the time that any transition should be voluntary, calling the mandate counterproductive and unnecessary. A specific public comment period has not been established yet in GN Docket 16-142. If the FCC wishes to move ahead, we should see that announced through a public notice. Hey, it's the Michi. I know this is right around the time where usually the podcast would end, but we got a lot of stuff this week. So please do me a favor. If you are listening to this on YouTube, please subscribe to the Michelle Bradley YouTube channel, the one that you're watching this on right now. And please put a like on the video because, we could use it. We appreciate it. We need to build subscribers here. Again, thank you for your support. FCC Chairman Brendan Carr has sent a letter to Robert Pittman, Chairman and CEO of iHeart Media, raising concerns about the upcoming iHeart Country Festival to be held on May 3, 2025 in Austin, Texas. As previously reported on FCC Today, the podcast, the agency recently issued an enforcement advisory to the radio industry in regards to stations that are allegedly compelling musicians to perform at station events, such as the upcoming Country Festival, for free or for reduced compensation in exchange for more favorable airplay that is not reported, thus violating the PAYOLA law. Calling this a real-world example of how such events are put together, Carr asks about those who will be performing, the compensation they will be receiving, and what they would normally receive for similar performances, and why iHeart believes that these acts would perform for free or reduced rates at such festivals. The letter also asks questions regarding airplay and internal policies at the broadcaster where it comes to payola. iHeart has until March 6 to reply. Similar to his recent letter to Comcast, Chairman Carr has sent a letter to Verizon questioning their diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. The commission is currently reviewing a proposal by Verizon to purchase Frontier Communications. Commissioner Jeffrey Starks blasts Carr over the letter, inquiring about the business practices of a private company, stating, quote, "I strongly oppose conflating policy agendas with an unrelated transaction review. This is even more troubling given that the pleading cycle for this transaction has closed. Leveraging transaction reviews in this fashion sets a dangerous precedent and will only chill investment where it's sorely needed," end quote. At last Thursday's open meeting, the FCC adopted the 8th report and order in CG docket 17-59, which requires carriers to invoke the use of do not originate lists that prevent the routing of illegal robocalls from reaching consumers, as well as other technical changes. The FCC adopted a notice of inquiry in GN docket 25-59 on whether the commission should increase the use of the upper C-band spectrum between 3.98 and 4.2 gigahertz. The FCC adopted a notice of proposed rulemaking in GN docket 25-70, which is intended to fine-tune and harmonize procedures for an upcoming mandated auction of advanced wireless services, or AWS-3 spectrum. It is important to remember that the auction related to this proceeding was specifically mandated by Congress. Overall, the FCC still does not have auction authority for broadcast or for any other reason. The FCC adopted a notice of proposed rulemaking in MB docket 25-72 to revisit whether revisions need to be made to the rules that implemented the Commercial Advertisement Loudness Mitigation, or CALM Act. This proceeding is as a result of a rise in complaints received at the FCC about loud commercials. The FCC has adopted the 7th report and order and the 11th further notice of proposed rulemaking in PS docket 15-91. In the report and order, the FCC will adopt a proposal that allows alert originators, such as first responder agencies, to be able to send alerts to wireless devices that do not send an audible signal or vibration. Such functionality could prove life-saving in active shooter situations. The NPRM looks at broadening the use of the public safety message type code by allowing them to be used on a standalone basis, as opposed to being used in connection with an alert sent for a different purpose. The The NPRM also looks at allowing consumers to choose the audible signal versus vibrate mode for certain alert types and other ways that a consumer can opt out of certain types of wireless emergency alerts. Comment dates for these items will be announced at a later time once they're published in the Federal Register. The Office of Engineering and Technology has announced that they are collecting comments on 3 Part 15 waiver requests. Automaker Tesla is requesting a waiver of the rules for an equipment authorization for an ultra-wideband optimal positioning system that would operate in the 7.5 to 8.5 gigahertz band to facilitate wireless charging of electric vehicles. The system would use a ground-based unit that would be used to correctly position the vehicle in order to properly perform the charging. Tesla states that the interference would be prevented as the car body would act as an attenuator. OET is also looking at 2 Part 15 waiver requests, one by Lumi United Technology Company and the other by U-tec Group Incorporated. Both proposals will use ultra-wideband technology in the 6 to 10 gigahertz band for door lock systems. Comments in ET docket 25-101 for Tesla, 25-102 and 25-103 for Lumi and U-tec respectively, are due on March 27, with reply comments due April 11, 2025.
Walk that plank.
The FCC has adopted 2 notices of apparent liability for pirate radio operation in the Miami area. The first NAL is for $60,000 against Aaron Streeter, in this case on March 2 and March 30, 2024, as well as on January 8, 2025. Streeter apparently willfully and knowingly did, caused, or suffered to be done pirate radio broadcasting operating under the name Da Pound FM on 89.1 from a residence on Northwest 158th Street in Miami Gardens and from a commercial building on Northwest 22nd Avenue, also in Miami Gardens. In the other case, an NAL for $325,322 has been adopted against Abdias Datas for operating a station on 91.7 under the name Unique FM from a residence on 147th Street in Miami. Datas is already a familiar name within the Enforcement Bureau, as Miami field agents have found the station operating 8 times from 5 different locations and has received previous NALs. As expected, Commissioner Nathan Symington has dissented on both forfeitures. As always, Streeter and Datas have 30 days to fight these NALs.
FCCxtra. Michi Bradley.
Okay, time to take the bonnet off for a minute, meaning, what I'm about to talk about is not the official opinion of REC Networks. But here's the thing. A lot of you know I'm not a huge fan of Brendan Carr. This goes back to even before the Trump administration, the Trump 47 administration. Working with Carr's office was very difficult on matters. And so, I'm not particularly fond of the guy. However, I will give credit where credit is due. I'm only fair in that way. And I'll tell you right now, this is frickin' incredible.
We're in Spanish Fort today with Hassani and his crew. They're refitting this 1,800-foot tower with an entirely new lighting system. I've had the chance to climb with crews a lot in my time on the commission. This is my first time climbing as chairman, so we're finally going to answer the age-old question of how many chairs does it take to change a light bulb. Hopefully no more than 1, but I think we're going to get the job done. Hassani, maybe talk a little bit about what you've been doing here this last couple weeks.
We're here to install we're taking off the old lighting system and putting up a new lighting system on this 1,800-foot tower. And it is an honor to have Chairman Carr here with us and willing to go up on tower, and that shows his bravery and his willingness to help us in the broadcast industry. Happy to have you here.
Thanks so much. Hassani's long served the country. He's a combat vet in the Army. He's now been doing this for a number of years. Most people, when they turn their smartphone on or turn their TV on, they think it just works maybe on Magic or Pixie Dust, but it's the hard work of Hassani and tower crews like him that get it done. We're looking forward to getting up there today. Look forward to it, man.
That's fun. Thanks.
That tower is owned by Nexstar, licensee of WKRG Mobile, Alabama, which is ironically a CBS affiliate. After getting his harness checked, he took a 20-minute ride up the lift, which is called a pen, and then he climbed the rest of the way. The overall tower height was 1,865 feet. Now, like I said, I will give credit where credit is due. There's only a couple hundred people out there that can climb these huge towers, and I will definitely give Carr credit for this. And I'll just say this, we deal with the great water cooler in this industry, and that's radiodiscussions.com. That's the Facebook groups, that's the email lists and everything like that. And around this huge industry water cooler, we always I hear conversations like, well, I think that the commissioners should not be attorneys and lobbyists. They should actually be technical people that know this stuff. And, and I've always hinted the fact that I think that there should be a minimum requirement that anybody who sits on the bench at the FCC should have at least a technician class amateur radio license. But again, I'm going to give credit where credit is due. I got to say it, Brendan Carr, my bonnet's off to you. And that was so ballsy. I would never even think about doing anything like that. There's petticoats and things like that I've got to deal with. But anyway, all right. So there. Out of all the things I feel about Brendan Carr right now, this one, 2 thumbs up, Brendy. 2 thumbs up. Bonnet back on.
Michi.
FCC Today, the podcast, is available at Podbean and wherever you get your podcasts. It's also on the Michelle Bradley YouTube channel. Please subscribe to the channel. For assistance with FM, please contact REC Networks at 202-621-2355. FCC Today, the podcast, is a production of REC Networks, a leading voice for a diverse dial. I'm Michelle Bradley, SBE certified broadcast technologist. Thank you for listening.